This is the Seiko SBDY059 Baby Tuna Urban Safari. So this box just arrived from Japan. Let's get her open. This is the only Seiko box I've ever had that is this elongated shape. Inside our box, yet another box, and two manuals. One, an instruction manual for mechanical watch in Japanese, and looks like it's also in English. And another one that's the worldwide guarantee for the Seiko watches, and my card, my warranty card here. And there it is. That is the Urban Safari. Let's see here. This is more of a jewelry box style than most Seiko watch boxes. Nothing special about this. It's just a paper watch box. Some plastic casing here. You can see this is the JDM model, the Japanese domestic model. It's got everything in the price and all the advertising in Japanese. So let's get this plastic and tag stuff off, and then we'll take a look. Okay, so we're back with all the plastics off, and you can take a good look at this guy now. So this is the Japanese model, which is the SBDY059, but it's sold as an international model as the SRPE29K1. And really, I think the only difference between those two is there's the kanji day wheel, and there is at the very bottom of the dial right here, it says made in Japan. That's really the difference. I like the kanji day wheel. I have plenty of watches that have day wheels that are in English or in different languages, so the kanji is kind of nice. And I tend to like to keep the Japanese models. So this guy, let's start with dial and work our way out. And I'm going to move the minute hand so we can see that the day and date. Okay. So our dial, that creamy tan dial, and the indices are applied indices. You can see that they've got surrounds on them and like a bulbous amount of luminous material added, so you can see, well, maybe you can't, but there is just gobs of lume put on this thing. The hands also are lumed, and they are a brushed finish, which I think you can see because of all the reflections in here today. But they're a brushed stick hands. They're perfect for exactly what they're meant for, which is quickly and easily telling the time and the difference between the two hands, well, the three hands, I guess. Our chapter ring, which is notoriously an issue with Seikos in its alignment. This one seems to be fairly well aligned, but there is a black chapter ring on the outside there, angled in, and those generally with Seikos sit on top of the dial, so it's not a part of the dial, it's not integrated, and it's not a part of the case. It's a separate plastic ring usually that sits between the crystal and the dial, and fills that space between the glass and where the hands are, you know. And then the day and date wheel, there it is. So this one is in kanji and English, so you can flip it into English if you want to. And black is the right choice on this one. A lot of times brands, when they do colored dials, they'll leave them white day and date wheels, but black is the right choice given the rest of the black accents and black coloring on this watch. The hands and the dial are loomed. The chapter ring is not loomed. That second hand is also loomed there. And then you end up with some lume from the 12 to the 20 minute mark on the bezel. And so you can see here Seiko, and then it's got the Prospex logo, automatic, and Divers 200. And I could be wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Tell me in the comments, but I'm fairly confident that if it says Divers on it, it means that it's ISO certified. And if it's ISO certified, it means that it has to be individually tested for pressure resistance. And generally, watch companies will test over the stated resistance. And so this is 200 meters, more than I'll ever need. I wear dive watches because I like the aesthetic and because the timing bezel is great, but I'm never going to go diving. So this thing is perfect for everyday life for me. And we'll throw in, speaking of the lume, we'll throw in a lume shot right here. You can see it is a bluer lume than you normally get with Seikos, but does a good job, doesn't take a lot to charge it. Ambient light seems to be able to charge it pretty well, and everything is easily distinguishable. Just for comparison, I have a Pelagos. So this is a Tudor Pelagos, and you can see there's a slight difference in the brightness. The Pelagos is BGW9, so that's a different compound as well, but surprisingly, the Seiko does a good job here. I mean, side by side, there's really only a small difference in the two. As you saw in that lume shot, glows really well, as you would expect with the Seiko. It's not the brightest thing on earth. It is supposed to be a Lumibrite, that proprietary Seiko material, but it does glow a little bluer, and I'm wondering if that's because it is that aged colored lume, or really just colored lume. It's not quite aged because it doesn't show any kind of aging. It's just more of a match to the style of the dial. The gray model has white lume. I would assume it glows just as well. And by white lume, I mean the luminous material inside the indices and the hands, and the bezel is white rather than this lightly colored kind of tan. I'm usually not a huge fan of colored lume. I usually want all my indices filled with a bright white color, unless it's an actual vintage watch. But I think it works well with this one. And I'm glad that they didn't do it on the gray model. So the bezel itself, and this is kind of part of the whole case, but the bezel is, so again, loomed from, and you saw this, loomed from 12 to 20 minute marker, and then the rest of it is not. It is set in like an acrylic inset, and so that luminous material and the paint and everything is on the bottom of this inset, and then this is a matte finished edging here, like the top coat on this bezel. It looks great. It definitely gives it more of a tool feel, more of a you can beat it up and knock it around and not worry about a little tiny scratch showing up on a high polish feel. And the bezel is inset in this shroud, and so that's the whole thing about the Tuna and some of the monster lines, is that they're set in a shroud which can be removed and replaced if damaged, but the idea is that it protects the watch from being damaged, and it protects the bezel from moving. The original Tuna was for industrial divers, people that did this as a job. I mean, this one here, the urban models, the urban safari, obviously it's just for looks, but it's functional. And so it is a metal surround. It's got 3 screws that hold it in. You can remove those 3 screws and remove the shroud. However, you end up with 3 holes in the side of the case. And then the crown itself is essentially a 4th screw, in that you screw it down around the shroud, and there's like a slight cutout here. So the bezel action is what you would expect from a Seiko, in that it is a click spring. So if you give it a listen, it's actually, so it's a click ring. The spring, there's 2 springs on these things, and really that's just a tab of metal that sticks up off of a metal insert ring that sits between the bezel and the actual watch case itself. And it doesn't give off the most luxurious feel. It's not a luxury watch. They're easily replaced if they break. The problem with this and almost all Seikos, like I had stated before, is, so right about there is aligned, right? That's an aligned bezel. This one sits there. just out of alignment. And you can see it when you're looking at the bezel indices versus the chapter ring, which seems to be aligned. Unfortunately, so normally you could take the bezel off, you could pop the bezel insert out, you could put the bezel back on, put a new, because it's only held in, most bezels are only held in with some glue, essentially, some double-sided tape, really. And so you could just set it right back in and fix it yourself. This model, the bezel has a little lip. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on camera, but there's a little lip between the acrylic insert and the actual sapphire. And so you can kind of see that shine there, right there, actually. Yeah, you can see it at the edge of the crystal. And that means that you really can't easily pull that insert out and adjust this because the insert sits in like a trough that goes around the entire outside. So I would either need to somehow pry it out of there without breaking it. I mean, I don't know how. Maybe I can get a hold of a watchmaker who will give me a new one so that if I do pry it out and break, I can set it in. But it's a huge bummer. That being said, watches of all makes and manufacturers and costs have this alignment issue. I mean, it's been documented on Rolex Submariners that they can be slightly out of alignment. My Pelagos is just a fraction of like a millimeter out of alignment, and it bothers me, but the overwhelming majority of people aren't going to notice this. And so I think I just kind of have to get over it. As far as play, none. It doesn't move at all. There's no, except for like the obvious clicking itself and the little bit of, counter rotation that occurs because it is a click spring. So there and back. There's no movement in the bezel. The whole watch goes if you try and push it around. So that's phenomenal. It is really well seated on this watch. Oh, it's 120 click rotation as well. So you get, for every 5 minutes, you get 10 clicks, right? Moving on to that case. Like I said, most of the case is covered by that shroud. And so really then you kind of consider the shroud the case, right? So you get these notches cut out where you can rotate the bezel. And the rest of it is, you really can't get a good grip there. The rest of it is a brushed. This is a coated, like a DLC sort of coating on this watch. And that coating goes to the buckle. I'll take care of that in a second. But that coating goes all over the entire watch. What you'll notice, though, is that it's brushed everywhere except for the lugs. You see that kind of gunmetal shine on the lugs. Same color, just a different finish. The only thing that's not coated is the case back, and that is just regular stainless steel. The whole watch is stainless steel, but the coating is that kind of gunmetal gray coating. And you can see here on the case back, maybe the shine is a little hard to make it see, but divers watch, 200 meters, Seiko, made in Japan, stainless steel. It's got the Prospex, it's got the serial number, and then it's got the movement, which is 4R36, and we'll talk about that as well in a second. So this case, this model is 43.2 across. So that's this measurement, although I guess you can grab different measurements based on if you're going to the bezel here or if you're going to the out case. But it's 43.2 if you're going to the shroud. And then it is a 44 lug-to-lug. And so that's a really short lug-to-lug. So it brings that 43 down to make it feel much smaller. And I'll show you a wrist shot in a bit. But compared to 42 millimeter watches I have, 40 millimeter watches, this feels much smaller. And then the thickness is 12.7. That's not bad. It's a 200 meter diver. It's got a decent movement in it. It's got this big shroud. It's made to be beat up. And then at 12.7, I mean, just under 13 millimeters, that's a great measurement for an affordable dive watch. Especially mass-produced one that would be cheap to service. The lug width is 20 millimeters, and that's another nice feature that you can swap out any straps you really want. The next thing I guess we can take a look at is the actual action of the movement, and that is a screw down crown. And once it pops out, you got to keep going a little bit, and you get a pop on this when the threading lets go. First position, you get just the winding. So the first position is as soon as it unscrews, and you can hear that. Kind of a noisy winding. The second position is the date, if I can get there. And so there's your day wheel going around, the difference between kanji and English, and then your date. There you go. And then the third position, that is your time set position, and that is a hacking movement. So you see that second hand is stopped there, so you can set it to whatever you need to, and then get it exact, and then push go. Push it in, starts spinning again. You push that crown in just a little bit. It actually has a really nice screw down action for its price point. There are a lot of watches that are more expensive that don't screw in that well. So behind all that winding and moving is the 4R36, which is not a particularly nice movement. It's like a very run-of-the-mill standard Seiko movement. It's not bad. It's better than the one that was in the SKX. It does hack, and it's hand winding, but it's very standard. In fact, I'm fairly confident that it's just the same as the NH series movement. So there's an NH35 and NH36, and I'm pretty sure the 4R36 is the NH36, just branded differently between whether Seiko puts it in their own watches or Seiko sells it to other people to put in their watches, which means you can get watches for a lot less than this one with that movement. It also means that if this watch's movement dies on you, you can crack open the back, buy another one for like $20 and slap it in there, and be up and running again. The same handset will fit, the same dial will fit. So it comes on this really nice feeling rubber strap. So this is a dive strap. It's got a metal keeper on it that's branded with Seiko on it. All color matched buckle. Back there you can see Seiko, 20 millimeter. It has the accordion on the end, so you can, I guess, technically use it as a dive watch, so that it would, if you stretch it over the suit, and then as you get compressed, it will compress itself and keep it on your wrist. It is really long. I don't like having a tab at the end of my straps, and in fact, most of the time I wear bracelets, but this one at the end of the tab, it does have that little tsunami, that wave logo, which is the same as the back of the case here. But I'm definitely not going to keep it on this strap. It's comfortable, and it's much more comfortable than most Seiko straps, but it's just too long, and this metal keeper I found doesn't keep it in place. And so when you put this through here, this metal keeper, it's not tight enough, and it just kind of slides off the end. And then you're left with the tab sticking out, especially if your wrist is under 7 inches. So I have a 7-inch wrist, 18 centimeters roughly, and this is a big watch. So I'm going to be swapping this band out probably for something from Barton. They have a rubber series. It doesn't have the little accordion section, but they're very comfortable. They're just as comfortable as these the Seikos on this one. But for Seiko, again, this is a big upgrade, this strap. And they did a good job of color matching it. So here's that wrist shot. And you can see that tab sticks out, right? So if I move the keeper to the end there, it has a tendency to slide one way or the other, and either slide off this way or slide back. But it is really comfortable, and it looks pretty good. And if you wear it back further, it's a nice stock strap for a Seiko. So I'll throw some stats right here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you're into these videos. It helps the channel grow, and thanks for watching.